I'm going to go ahead and get us started. Everyone can see my screen. So welcome everyone. This is our week 5 of our 8-week series, new student weekly checklist webinars. This week's topic is liberal arts and academic offerings here at Lewis and Clark. I am going to pass it to Colin, who's going to introduce our panelists for today. And then we'll talk through a little bit about what this webinar will look like today.
Awesome. So we have a lot of people on our webinar today presenting on numerous topics, but just to kind of get oriented with the first year experience team, we have Jonathan Mans is unfortunately not here today. He's going to be the director of the first year experience. Melanie McManamon is going to be our coordinator. My name is Colin Bloom. I'm the student director. And we also have Judith Segovia joining us, and she will be the student coordinator for the first year experience. Going over to the College Advising Center, we have 3 amazing guests from the College Advising Center, Katie McFadden, Heather Miner, and Katie Lemon. They are great. I really encourage you to get a meeting with them. Encourage you to meet with them when you're on campus because they're just lovely. We also have a faculty guest, Rebecca Lingefelter, an associate professor here at Lewis and Clark, and the theater department chair as well. And additionally, from World Languages and the Literature Department, we have Blair Orfall, who is our program coordinator for that as well. And yeah.
Great. Thank you, Colin. So I'm going to give a quick review of some of the tasks that you hopefully have completed in the last couple weeks. And I'll also give you a little heads up about our tasks that we will be hoping that you're completing this coming week. So the last couple weeks, hopefully you submitted your housing application, which was due on June 30th. If you haven't, go ahead and email living@lclark.edu. Campus Living will help you to take your preferences as they're still placing people in their housing assignments. And we know that some people maybe missed that deadline. That's okay. Go ahead and email Campus Living so you can still let them know what your preferences are and get that in there. Also last week, hopefully you submitted your NSO, which is New Student Orientation info form. One of the main things in that info form is going to be putting in your size for your t-shirt that you get. Free t-shirt. We all love a free t-shirt. So during orientation, you'll get your free orientation t-shirt, which will have a really cool orientation logo, special for your incoming class of students. Be sure to get that in there so that we know what your size is and we can make sure to ensure you a t-shirt. Other things that are in that info form are going to be things that are going to help us make sure that the orientation experience is good and attuned to your needs. So just please check that out. If you're having trouble logging into it, be sure you're in your Lewis and Clark email address. You will need to be in that Google account in order to submit that form. And if you're having any trouble with that, you can email firstyear@lclark.edu and we will try and help you figure that out. Okay, let's see. This week, our checklist tasks, we have a lot of academic items, which is why we have our liberal arts and academic offerings team here to talk about what that looks like at Lewis and Clark. So some of the tasks that we want you to be completing this week are some placement exams. A few of them we'll talk about today. We have a world languages placement exam, ALEX, which is a mathematics placement exam, and potentially a music theory placement exam. These are all depending on if they apply to you. Some of them might not apply to you. For example, world languages, if you're hoping to enter at the 101 level, potentially you do not need to take a world languages exam. So just be sure to go to our website, to the checklist website, so you can read through if these apply to you, if you need to take one of those placement exams. We'll talk a little bit about them during this webinar. but also you can ask some questions during the webinar if you have questions about your case or whatnot. Also, we're hoping that you can complete the academic integrity tutorial. That is something that is going to be in Moodle, and you will have to self-enroll in that course. So I've had a couple questions about how to find that course. It's not going to appear automatically in your Moodle dashboard. You will have to go and find it and enroll yourself. If you go to our website, you can, once you've created a Moodle account, you can click on the link and that should self-enroll you into the course. Again, if you're having any trouble, feel free to email us at firstyear@lclark.edu and we can direct you with where you need to go to get that solved. Finally, we'll also have next week a course in Moodle to kind of help you navigate Moodle and learn a little bit about it. You should be able to complete the academic integrity tutorial without the Moodle kind of crash course, get to know Moodle. So if you're having trouble, let us know. But that Moodle crash course to teach you a little bit about how Moodle is used here at Lewis and Clark will be open by next week. So throughout this webinar, and maybe we have already started to see some questions, but just as a reminder, there will be a Q&A at the end, towards the end of this webinar, where we will answer questions live. But as you're sitting here and listening, please feel free to open up the Q&A, ask away throughout the webinar. If questions come to you, we will have people checking on that Q&A throughout the webinar to answer your questions, or we may potentially answer them at the end in the Q&A. Any questions that get answered throughout the webinar will also be mentioned during that Q&A session, just to ensure that everyone kind of hears that question and hears an answer in our recording. And with that, I'm going to pass slide control here to Katie.
Great. Thank you, Melanie. I'm Katie McFadden. I'm director in the College Advising Center. And as Colin mentioned, I'm joined by Heather and Katie, also from the CAC. So you'll see them answering questions in Q&A as well. I thought I would start. Let's see. I would start just by giving some context on who we are and kind of how we fit into the advising model at Lewis and Clark. So everyone is assigned a college advisor from the College Advising Center. That's who you've been hearing from this summer. You've been hearing from one of us, and we're in touch about preparing for course registration later in July. We remain a resource to you and matched to you all the way through till graduation. So you should always feel welcome to come see us. And I think we are especially good at looking at four-year plans and comparing overall options, kind of laying out multi-semester, plans to graduate. You can come see us just for a second opinion on things or any kind of big academic decision you want to make. And finally, even though you're assigned to someone in the CAC, you really should feel comfortable seeing anyone. We have kind of a shared advising model. It's okay to come on drop-in. And if you meet with the person you're not assigned to, that's perfectly okay. And then transfer students, you are already assigned to a faculty advisor, and first-year students, you will be assigned to a faculty advisor later in August. The faculty advisor is going to be your main advising contact moving forward. They're the person you meet with each term to talk about course planning and your academic options and to get cleared to register for the next term. And when you declare a major, the faculty advisor swaps out for a faculty member in the department that you're declaring. So we'll go back. So, so that's just kind of the advising model in a nutshell, which I described. I hope it highlights that the point here is to give you multiple points of contact and make sure you have lots of support and, multiple people you can go to and resources just to make sure you feel confident and comfortable about the academic options before you and what you're choosing. So with that, I'll pass it over to Professor Lingenfelter to talk a little bit more about the liberal arts.
Great. Hi, everybody. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about what kinds of things you can expect from your education at Lewis and Clark, and give you some thoughts about as you head towards registration and think about the kinds of classes that you might want to take in the fall. Just some things to consider because being in a liberal arts college is distinctive and special, and I want you to know kind of some of the distinctive things about the way that we do education here. So the first thing I want to highlight for you is the idea of interdisciplinarity. So the college really values the way in which all of our different disciplines talk to each other. And that's, from STEM to the arts to the humanities. We work as faculty to really think about integration of our disciplines as much as teaching the specificity of what we're doing, which is really, really exciting as an educator, because I have students who come into my class, from a bio class on human anatomy, and I'm teaching acting, and they're thinking about the way that the body is in relationship to performance. So these kinds of really exciting educational moments happen all the time. And I feel really excited to uplift that for you. The other way that interdisciplinary plays out is the ways in which then students who come out of Lewis and Clark use that kind of holistic view of the world to create really, really exciting careers for themselves. So we have students coming out of the theater program that use their computer science degree to go on to do VR game design and programming, and start a nonprofit in Seattle to bring socially engaged music practice to underserved communities, or have a chemistry major who's now in grad school in Utah, but brought her experience of collaborative art making into her lab there. So we get to really see students coming out of Lewis and Clark doing really, really exciting things that kind of bridge discipline. And really, I'm sharing this with you because as you come in and start to pick classes, and Katie will talk a little bit about this, I want you to think really openly about how you might engage with your education at Lewis and Clark. And one of the opportunities of being here is that you don't have to slot in to a major right away, that you can really open yourself to a bunch of different kinds of experiences. And that's a really important part of the way we want to engage with you around your education. The second piece that I wanted to just share with you is that our classes are all so experiential and practice-based. Because we're a small college, because we have small class sizes, it means that your Bio 101 class is not a giant lecture, but you are actually in the lab or in the field doing the work. In the arts, you're throwing ceramics or practicing an instrument or making a play. In history, you're visiting the archives or going to do community work in Portland. In poetry, you get feedback, from National Book Award winners. So I wanted to share that with you because I think it's a really exciting aspect of the education that you're going to have here, and know that you're going to come into classes and be directly engaged right from the very beginning. The third piece I wanted to share with you is this value of close faculty mentorship. So again, one of the advantages of coming to Lewis and Clark is that because the way that the faculty engage with students is very much one-on-one, and we're really invested in your education. So go to office hours, talk to faculty. We're not scary people, in dark rooms. Like, we really want to engage with you and think about your education with you and help support you through your 4 years here. And then finally, I just want to highlight community. So Lewis and Clark really values our work together in community. We think about education as collaborative, so that we are co-conspirators in our education with you, and that your interest and your curiosity really guides the direction of a lot of what we do together. So I just invite you to be open, try new things, and I'm so excited to meet you all in the fall.
Thank you. Thank you. That's a great segue then into this graph. I think the interdisciplinarity that Professor Lingenfelter is talking about, ooh, I should have practiced that one first, is then highlighted here, where every student needs 128 credits to graduate, but you should know that about a third of that will be spent on general education. About a third of that will be spent on your major, but that leaves an entire third of the pie for this exploration that we're talking about. So when we say there's room to explore, or we encourage students to explore, this is why, that this is built into the curriculum, that there's space for exploring. You know, if students do a double major or another minor, I mean, that is a use of the elective space, but a lot of students use that elective space for other things, you know, going overseas or studying other topics of interest before they settle on a major. There's really that time and built in. And then I thought I'd just zoom in a little bit to the general education part of the pie. So the gen ed requirements, as they're sometimes called, are really meant to help students explore the breadth of the curriculum at Lewis and Clark. And these are categories, but how you fulfill each requirement or each category, there's a lot of choice, and you really can decide how to fulfill that category based on your academic interests. The one thing I want to highlight here is that a lot of students assume that they should fulfill the gen ed, they should finish the gen ed as soon as possible or in the first year. Or, you know, we hear expectations like that a lot. You don't need to fulfill all the gen ed in 1 year. You don't need to do it on a really tight time frame. As long as you're making a little bit of progress as you go, that's perfectly fine. So just know that that also comes into this idea that there's room to explore. You don't need to be doing all the general education immediately or right away. And a lot of students are actually surprised by the things they fulfill almost on accident, just because they were exploring. If you're a transfer student, you can tune out for a second here because transfer students are exempt from taking first year seminars. But for first year students, if you're an incoming first year student, first year seminars, words and numbers, this is the only requirement that you must do in the first year. This is the one general education requirement that you take on a certain time frame. All first year students will take words or numbers in fall, and then you'll do the other one in spring. So you do one of them in fall, one of them in spring. The first year seminars are small classes. They're designed to really hone in on your reading and writing and critical thinking skills. So it's a great source of building community in your first year as well. You should all have received your placement for fall last week of the words or numbers class you're going to take in fall. So that's already on your schedule, and you could see it there in Web Advisor if you want to go into it, see what day and time it's offered. So then for a moment here, we can talk about the major part of the pie. And obviously there's time to sort that out. I hope we've communicated that. There's room to explore a few things. It's very normal to not know what you'd like to major in right now. Maybe you just have some areas of interest identified. That's great. For first year students, I think a good goal in your first term is to try out a few of those things. You know, dip your toes into those subjects and try them. For transfer students, depending on how many terms you have to graduate, you may need to decide on a major a little sooner, but odds are there's still some time to explore. I would encourage you to not think of major as I'm choosing a career. Similar to what Professor Lingenfelter was saying, that at a liberal arts school, your major and your career, they relate to each other. There are themes there, but you may often be surprised by how it relates to each other. So when you're choosing a major, you're not choosing one career, you know, for the rest of your life. The options are much more open than that. So there is time to explore, and there's people and resources to help you make this decision. And then I have a sample first year schedule here just to kind of give some details, maybe sort of a formula to think about as you choose your first term classes. This is a sample schedule for first years. If you're a transfer student, it really depends a lot on how much you're transferring in and where you are in the major process. But for first year students, as you think about this pie graph and the room you have to explore and trying out a major and getting started on general education, I think a good formula will be you'll have core, your words or numbers class, and then maybe try a couple things to try out some majors of interest. Or you could try out a major of interest and then do a general education class, especially something like language, where there's multi-semesters, or you want to get started early because you want to go overseas. But you need a couple courses there to try out some areas of interest. And then feel free for your fourth class we call it something for fun. You know, there really should be, that gets at this room for exploration and trying classes you never got the opportunity to try in high school. There's space for that. We want there to be space for that. So that's in the formula as well. And the idea here is that you're shooting for about 16 to 18 credits. 12 credits is the minimum to be a full-time student, but to stay on track for 128 credits to graduate, 16 credits is a good number to shoot for. That's a little bit better number to shoot for. So about 4 classes. And then I'll pass things over to Blair to talk more about the language placement exams.
Hi, I am the program coordinator for World Languages and Literatures, and I manage the language placement exams. And what we just want to do is encourage you to go ahead and take the language placement exam because it gives you more information for when you're thinking about what classes to take. There's a website, a page where you, for all of the languages, because there are some languages that have online exams that you can access through Moodle, such as French, German, Japanese, and Spanish. And then there's some other languages like Arabic or Russian or Greek or Latin that you need to just contact that professor and indicate your interest. But we have a website with all of that information for every single language, including, trying to answer additional questions, like if you'd like to take 2 languages or if you're a native speaker. But I mean, I think the big takeaway I would love for students and their families to take from this webinar is just go ahead and take that placement exam. It doesn't lock you into anything. It just gives you some information to think about as you are planning your schedule. And if you have any issues whatsoever with the exam, please just reach out to me. My name is Blair Orfall at L. Clark, and pretty easy to locate on the website. I'll be happy to answer the Q&A questions.
Great, thank you so much. We flew through all of our slides, and so now it is time for our Q&A portion. There have been quite a few questions already asked and answered in the Q&A. Just to give people some time to put some questions into that Q&A, I am going to actually ask Colin and Judith to come in here a little bit, and I'll ask the question of what is your major here at Lewis and Clark? Oh, Katie, did you want to add something? Katie Lemon? Did you ever hear? Oh, sorry.
Yes, I did actually about the Q&A, but I didn't mean to raise my hand. So one of the questions that kind of has appeared a couple times in the Q&A already has been about the core placements. Those were sent out to your L. Clark email from the general education email, Dawn Wilson. So if you didn't get that, in the chat, I put her email address where you can reach out to her to find your core placement. And then just to remind you that all of the classes that you're registering for are only for a semester. So if you are in Words now, you will redo that preference form for numbers in October-ish for your spring classes. So just one this fall. We'll redo that process again for spring.
Thank you, Katie. Colin and Judith, I wanted to know what you're majoring in, and also what your favorite course that you took that's outside of your major.
That's a great question. So my major is rhetoric and media studies. I came into Lewis and Clark undecided, so kind of like that I was intimidated by like how it's divided up into 3 categories. I came into college and I was like, I don't have a major. I can't have one of my third of my classes be a major when I don't have a major. So during my first 2 semesters at Lewis and Clark, I did a lot of kind of like soul searching and exploring, and I just took classes that I wanted to take and I thought were interested. So I ended up on rhetoric and media because I just love the faculty. All of the professors there are really kind of like invested in your learning and making sure you're kind of on track and understand the material. And I really appreciate that. And in my search for my major, in my search for rhetoric and media, I took one of my favorite class, if not my favorite class ever. I've taken in high school, in middle school. This class was the best class I've ever taken. It was Indian philosophy by J.M. Fritzman. It was a great class. He's a really funny professor. We actually just hang out in office hours a lot now. And it's just a really fun department as well. So yeah, those are my answers.
Yeah, well, for me, my major is Hispanic Studies with a minor in Ethnic Studies. I, like Colin, also came in undecided, not exactly knowing what direction I wanted to take my education in. However, I did have my first and favorite class, I think my second semester, was Education in a Complex World. It very much opened my eyes to the type of education I had received in earlier education, and that has now kind of put me in a path to wanting to be teaching. And I'm still very close to the professor that taught that class, and she tries to get me in those spaces where teaching is very open, and the bettering of teaching is something that is talked about.
Great, thank you so much. I am going to, a lot of these questions, because we have so many people on the call, are being answered as they're coming in, but I'm actually just going to go through some of the questions that we're seeing here in case you're unable to keep scrolling through or wherever you're looking. If you're not able to check the Q&A, I want to make sure that everyone can hear some of the questions that are being asked and what answers we have, because I do see a lot of similar questions. So this will be helpful for those that are watching this later, or for those who didn't hear or see the questions asked and answered. One question was about the NSO form and when that is due. So I mentioned the NSO form, hoping that you can get your t-shirt preference in by next week. So you still have time to do that. And the link is a Google Forms link, and that can be found on the first year website in the checklist website. So if you go to student life and first year experience, then you'll find on the side there student checklists, new student checklists, and that is where you'll find all the links to all the things that you need to be completing before you come to campus. I've seen a few questions about ASL. We do not offer ASL classes here on campus, but it's something that you can take elsewhere and transfer in. There was another
Actually,
question.
I'm going to pop in on that one just real fast too. I would say one of the number one lies people tell themselves is that I will take care of that next summer. Like I'll do my ASL next summer and take care of that requirement. It's great if you want to do ASL for your requirement, but if you're at all worried that you're the kind of person who might put it off and then not get to it, I would recommend maybe starting a new language at Lewis and Clark in the fall at the 101 level. A lot of language classes are only taught at the 101 level in the fall. So if you miss that boat the first semester in the fall, you kind of got to wait an entire year before you can start that 3-semester requirement. So if this is something more you want to talk about, this is a great conversation to have with one of your college advisors, because yeah, it definitely comes up a lot. You're not alone in wanting to explore ASL, but there's some negotiations around that to manage. So, okay. Sorry for interrupting.
Oh, thank you. I was actually going to ask for somebody to give a little bit more insight, because I did see there were a few questions about that. So thank you so much, Heather, for that clarification. Question about where we get Moodle. Moodle.lclark.edu will take you to that single sign-on, so you can use your L. Clark number LC 24 dash and then 4 numbers. You can use that to log in and create an account. To clarify, the registration dates for fall registration this year are going to be July 31st. and August 2nd. So there are maybe a couple incorrect dates, and we will have to go through the website to check. But the first year checklist, that is a good place to find all your accurate dates. July 31st and August 2nd are your dates for fall course registration this year. How do you find out who your faculty advisor is? If you're a first year student, you're going to get an email before NSO. If you're a transfer student, you should have already received that information. So if you can't find that or you need help as a transfer student, definitely reach out to your college advisor. And then if you're a first year student, you will get it before coming to new student orientation. Transfer students do not need to take words and numbers. So Katie mentioned this, transfer students can check out at this point. So words and numbers is only required for first year students. There is an English placement exam, but it's only for international students who speak English as a second language. So if that applies to you and you have not followed through that process, definitely reach out to us first year at lclark.edu and we'll connect you with the person for that. Placement for your words and numbers course should have been sent to your Lewis and Clark email address. If you have not received that, or maybe you didn't create a Lewis and Clark email address until recently, you've been out of the country or whatnot, definitely email GenEd, GENED at lclark.edu to check in about your placement. Go ahead.
Sorry, Melanie. I'm realizing that we highlighted that some of the items today, like one of the items this week is the language placement, and then Blair talked about it. So we're seeing a lot of questions about language placement, which is great, makes sense. The other item though that's this week is the Alex math placement. We didn't necessarily have a slide about that, but I did want to raise that and highlight it, that would be an important placement to take this week. All students need a natural science requirement for general education, and the vast majority of those require a score of at least 53 on the math placement. So it's not like only a few majors need the math placement. I would recommend it for just about everyone if you have questions to talk to your advisor, but could we put in the chat just a reminder of like the checklist items so people can access the placement, or maybe I can. But I just wanted to bring that up. We're seeing a lot of questions about language, and I didn't want the math placement to get overlooked.
Yes, thank you, Katie. I will put in the chat a link to the first year checklist and the transfer checklist. But I also had a question about finding recordings for these sessions. And so I'm just going to put that link here as well. Because these sessions are all recorded. And so we post them in case you missed previous sessions and you would like to watch them, you can go watch them there. And this one will be uploaded by the end of the week.
I've seen a couple of questions about intermediate level or second level language classes. And just to let you know, if you're taking pretty much anything besides Spanish and French, it's likely that the 102 section of a language, say German, Russian, Japanese, something like Arabic, will be taught in the spring semester. And so that placement that you're doing, that you've gotten now, will still be there in your record for you to use to register for spring classes. So that's when you can start your language requirement is in the spring. And that's perfectly fine to start working on your language requirement in the spring.
There was also a question here they think is really good. I don't think we've touched on is if you place out of 201 and into 202, one of the questions was, can I just register for 201 rather than having to take the placement exam again in person? The answer is no. That placement exam has already technically behind the scenes made it look like you've placed out of that class, and you don't receive credit for it, but it's been fulfilled. So they need to have you confirm your placement in person. Blair can speak more to this if need be, but they'll do it again in person to just make sure it's the correct placement. If it's not the correct placement, then they will let you know, and then you can go register for 201.
If I could follow up on that too, just to let you know that these exams are generally pretty good at placing people where they should be. However, the instructor has the ultimate override. So if you end up in a course where you don't feel comfortable for one reason or the other, just speak to the instructor, and they can override the exam too. So, or place you where you belong, essentially, right? So yeah, the exams are just for kind of they do a pretty good job, but if you have any concerns, you can certainly speak to the instructor.
And I did receive a question from a student today in one of our individual meetings about who sees these placement exams and if they're on a transcript, and they're not. They're just they're there for us to help you get registered your first semester. And with the math placement exam, we might come back to that test score later to help you get into a math class or whatever later. But no, nobody else sees them other than College Advising Center and the registrar's office.
Yeah, and to follow up on that, there's I know that it sounds pretty scary taking a test over the summer. I hate that I often, like, my first conversation with a student is like, you have to take a math test. That's not nice. No, for the language test, it's like an hour or less. Like, it's a snippet of your time. It should be a snapshot of your skills. For the Alex math placement, the first time that you take it, you don't need to study. Take it the first time just to get used to the system, to sort of get to know it a little bit, how it works. And then if you need to retake it, you do have to study for 8 hours in the learning modules before you can retake it. So that's one of the reasons that that for that one, taking it early is smart, because then you build in time if you need to take it again, and then if you need to take it again, and don't feel bad about it. If you don't, get the score you're aiming for on the first try, or even the second try, or even the third try, it's not designed to, hopefully, to make you feel bad. It's designed to make sure that you're in the right level of science classes, computer science classes, natural science classes for your gen ed, math classes, all of that kind of thing.
Blair, did you want to add something?
I'll come back to it. I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought.
Oh, okay. Still going through some of these questions. A fair amount of questions about the foreign language placement, knowing that foreign language is a requirement at Lewis and Clark, but the placement exam is the one thing that can potentially waive that requirement. Even if you took AP, you still need to take that placement, or even IB as well, AP or IB.
Melanie, there's a question about the health insurance waiver form. I'll just touch on real quick, because I reached out to student accounts a couple weeks ago about it, because it shows that the form is closed for the year. That's not the case. They had to wait until bills went out. And so it should be open soon. I would hope this week. They're aware that it shows that it's closed, and I believe it actually says that it's closed for last year. But it will reopen. So keep checking it.
Thank you. That health insurance waiver, hoping, because bills have gone out, hoping that the link updates. If it doesn't, you still have time to submit that waiver. Blair, did you?
Sorry, I remembered. If you have accommodations for testing as well, it'd be great to get in touch with the Office of Student Accessibility. And so you do not need to take the language placement exam if you have an for example, let's say you have time and a half, contact the Office of Student Accessibility, and then they'll let me know, and I will create a time and a half or a double time exam. So I just wanted to throw that in there.
We also go back now to the ALEX placement exam because now we've shifted from world language to ALEX placement exam. Couple different things. You do not have to take a math class at Lewis and Clark unless you're a STEM major or something like that that requires it. So a social science, major probably doesn't need to worry about it. Same with, history major, English major, whatever. We need the 53 on the ALEX because you have a natural science class that you have to take, and those have the prereq of a 53. So somebody was asking if their AP test places them out of the intro math class, do they still have to take the math placement exam? If you have a 4 or 5 on the AP, you wouldn't have to take it. I would talk to your college advisor about where you stand with that. But in terms of having to register for a math class this fall, unless you're in a STEM major, you don't have to worry about it right away.
Yeah, that ALEX placement, I like to think of it as future you will be really grateful if you just lock down that 53 or above this summer. Because then when you're, I don't know, the spring of your sophomore year and you want to knock out your natural science requirement, that score is still in the system and you can just register for it. So it's a great thing to do this summer.
So there was a question about the health insurance waiver, but there was also another question about finances. And so I just thought now would be a great time to give a shout out for our next week's webinar, which is all about finances. And one of the questions was about how do parents and families get access to student bills, and that will be something that we talk about next week. You're welcome to look at the website and start to preview some of that information, but parents do not have access to their student accounts until they are enrolled as an authorized party. So if you would like to know more about that, we definitely will be covering all of that with student accounts and financial aid next week. There is a question about an ALEX score minimum to be successful in first year seminar political math course.
Yep.
So those first year seminar classes don't have a math requirement. So there's no preparing, there's no math level that you have to be at to take those classes. They do sometimes focus on statistics and stuff. They will help you through all of that. So I wouldn't worry about math with your numbers class.
Yep, and that one in particular is taught by Ben Gaskins, who's the political science department, and he's a poli-sci wonk. So you can think of your numbers class as kind of like a numerical literacy class, or kind of like how math is used in the real world. So yeah, you don't need to come in with a math background.
And Katie's answering a question right now about the IB equivalency and advanced standing stuff, because so many of those are specific to your situation. I would reach out to your college advisor and just talk to them about it, because we can post a ton of information on here about it, but each case is different.
One question that I thought would be a good general question to bring up is a question about double majors and how manageable they are for students. And Katie gave us a great answer that a good number of students do complete double majors, but it depends on kind of the combination of majors that they choose. So for you specifically, if you have an idea of a couple majors you're interested in, definitely go and talk to your advisor, your college advisor. during this coming year to kind of talk about like what a 4-year plan might look like specific to that desire of those 2 majors. Or maybe you have a couple different ideas, but your college advisor is definitely going to be able to help you to envision what that could look like.
Yeah, and just to piggyback on that, this is actually something Rebecca, Professor Lingenfelter might like to jump in on. There's a lot of people that come in that think that they need to double major in something in order to be involved in that department. And theater and music and I don't know, PE, like there's a lot of departments that you can get involved in that doesn't require that you major in them, that you minor in them. And sometimes double majoring can be really limiting because then that's like you do those 2 things. It's really hard to do anything else. And most people are a lot more interesting than that, I think. More interesting than, bio and psych. You're more, there's more to you than that. So I don't know if you have anything to add on to that.
No, I totally agree. And I mean, double majoring is great, and we have lots of double majors. I'm always surprised at how many like STEM arts double majors we get. Like we get a ton of computer science theater majors, double majors, which I would never put together, but is so lovely. But it's true that we also have students who really are not majoring at all in theater, but are in every single main stage production, right? They did theater in high school, but they're pursuing a psych degree. And that's one of the benefits of the flexibility of the curriculum is that you get to kind of pursue your passions as well as some of these more academically oriented disciplines. So yes, it's really fun.
I see there is a question here about, as we're talking about planning, and question about registering for classes early. You cannot register for classes early, but you can have them ready to go in kind of like a shopping cart. And you cannot register earlier than that July 31st and August 2nd date. We will be talking a lot about registration in 2 weeks. At the webinar 2 weeks from today. But I would highly encourage you to maybe do a little shopping trip, like take a look at some of the courses this week, maybe next week, and give yourself some time to maybe check in with your advisor if you have questions. As you can see, there are lots of questions coming through all about courses and exams and all of that stuff. So I can only imagine that in 2 weeks, that webinar is going to have a ton of questions. So if you really want some more like one-on-one, you have a lot of specific questions about what you are hoping to do, I'd highly recommend maybe taking a little browse through those courses and seeing if you can meet or check in with your advisor, or just send an email with some of those questions prior to that webinar, just in case there isn't enough time to get through all of those questions.
Yeah, and there's a couple more about registration here that I just want to say. These are really good questions for your college advisor. Like, we've all have availability still. You can go to the College Advising Center's website and you'll find a link there on the main page. You can make a Zoom appointment or a phone appointment with your college advisor. We can walk you through Web Advisor and how to look for courses. We can explain, the July 31st and August 2nd split in a little bit more detail with your registration times. We'll help you find those. There's also some videos on how to do this on our website as well. So if you go to the College Advising Center's website, there's a video library on the right-hand side, and you can watch those and kind of, work alongside with those. I will just go back to the July 31st and August 2nd split because I think Katie answered it. That first July 31st, you're just going to register for one class. It's done that way so everybody gets a fair shot at the class they want the most. And then on the 2nd, everybody will go back in and register for 2 classes. Talk to your college advisor about it though for more details.
So there is a link in the chat that has the page for college advising, how to register, and all of that information. And I would say definitely if you have questions and you're confused about any of that, or you're like, I don't know, go now, just go check it out. And then as questions come up, you can email your college advisor, you can find a time to meet with them, and you can potentially come in 2 weeks to that webinar ready to go with all of those questions.
Yeah, and if you can spend some time in Web Advisor, just it's old, it's clunky, it looks like something from long before you were born. That is probably true. So it's it's something you need to give yourself some time to get used to and figure out how to use. And so the how to register guide has very much like do this, then do this, then do this, because that's how Web Advisor works. It's like none of it's intuitive. Everything is like click, click, click in this very specific way. So that's why we're here to help with that. That's why there's the videos that you can watch. That's why there's the step-by-step instructions, because we want to help you figure it out in any way that's best for you. I'll also give a shout out to our FAQ, which has some, if you go into the for new students and then the FAQ for new students or for transfer students, there's some really helpful information that you can also talk about with your college advisor. But things like, what if I have AP or IB credit? What if I have transfer credit? What are general education requirements? What makes a good schedule? Thanks, Katie put that. Oh, and the link to the video library. So yeah, I would definitely check those pages out because they're good places to just get started before you talk with your college advisor, after you talk with your college advisor, at any point in the process.
And also just to kind of mention about our website, we're dropping a lot of links in the chat, which are helpful. And when we get off this webinar, they might disappear. But our website can be, there's a lot of things going on our website. I have found that the search feature is really helpful. So if you're looking for advising, type in advising. If you're looking for, I think you could even probably type in like CAC and it will find the College Advising Center. So if you are not sure where to go, just use that search feature. It works really well to find what you're looking for. If you're looking for the webinars, you forget where the Zoom link is, type in webinars. Likely it will take you at least in one of those pages it shows you, it will show our webinars, for example, that are coming up, or maybe you want to go back and look at them. Type webinars in the search. That has always seemed to be helpful for me. A question about the first year seminar. So that preference was already taken. So you should have gotten an assignment last week. If you didn't get an assignment, you didn't have an account, you weren't able to give your preference, I would reach out to GenEd, GENED at lclark.edu, ask them about your placement, and maybe possibly see if there's any chance to be on a waiting list for a course if you were placed in a course that you don't prefer, that you didn't want to be placed into.
I just want to touch on that a little bit because that was a good point, that at this point, Dawn Wilson, who is in charge of the placements and will answer your email if you emailed the Gen Ed email account, she is the only one that can make these changes. So your college advisor can't help you with that. She has a list of the sections that have availability, and she will help you either place you in an open class or, as Melanie mentioned, place you on a wait list for a class that might already be full. And she'll be in touch with you throughout the summer if there's movement with those things.
The question was what her name is. Her name is Dawn, D-A-W-N, but you can reach her at gened@lclark.edu, which I'm sending in the chat now. Okay, we are coming up here on the hour, and I see questions have slowed a little bit, but we've gone through 61 questions, which I think might be a record. only possibly competing would be campus living. They had a lot of questions as well. But I will give it another minute or so in case any last minute questions are coming in. And I'm actually just going to kind of put our last minute reminder slide here. So reminders, this week, you really want to look at those placement exams. World languages, we answered a lot of questions about that. So hopefully you feel set to go. If you have questions about it, you can reach out to Blair here, Blair Orfall at lclark.edu. The ALEX exam, which is that math placement exam, as Heather mentioned, we want to do this now for future us, right? So doing it now is going to help us a lot. Take it once. Don't feel like that is going to be your score attached to you forever. But if you wait and don't do it until later, it's only going to get harder and less fun. So taking it now, seeing what you get, maybe that's it. And that's all you have to do. And amazing. But if not, you'll have time to go through that review module and study for those 8 hours needed before you take it again. As well as the music theory, which is specific to if you are looking to get into a course specifically relating to music theory. That is a placement that you can take, but is not required. The academic integrity tutorial is required. So I don't know if we'd answered any questions about this, but that is in Moodle. So you will have to self-enroll, as I mentioned before. And that is something that if you find in fall semester, you still have not completed the academic integrity tutorial, you will not be able to register for spring semester. So we want to make sure that you get that done for future us, right? Completing all of these tasks now so that future us can look back at the summer and say, thank you so much for doing these little tasks that we're trying to get you to do before, so you can enjoy your experience here at Lewis and Clark and not have to worry about going all the way back to our checklist.
Can I put a little plug in for the emergency contact information as well? That is also something that is required. It will actually place a hold on your account during registration if you don't do it. So please, please, please do it. You can do it in WebAdvisor. So when you log in there, you should see the link for emergency contact information. Some of you have done it so long ago that it needs to be updated. So if you're getting messages from us that you need to submit it and you think it's already submitted, just go in and double check, update it, hit submit, and you will be done.
We did a great webinar the first week of this checklist that is recorded and on our website. And we had somebody from IT who, with amazing visuals, walked us through that whole process. So if you're like, I'm not sure what that looks like, I thought I did it. If you're a very visual person like I am, it might be helpful to go back and look at that video and watch the walkthrough. You can use the little chapters feature in the YouTube video that's embedded on that page. So do that, and then you can kind of see exactly what it should look like and where you should put that information. Next week, if you already want to start thinking about next week is going to be all about finances, how to manage Lewis and Clark costs. We'll talk about enrolling a designee as an authorized party, completing the health insurance waiver, and how to settle your student account. So those are all tasks for next week. But if you would like to work ahead, you maybe need to work from behind, that is totally fine. All of this information is available on our first year checklist page. So again, maybe checklist in the search bar, first year in the search bar, and you will be rerouted to our page to find all of the links and all the information about that. I do want to just give everyone a chance to chime in here at the end in case we have any last comments or last thoughts.
Check your email every day
Yes.
and read them from us.
Yes.
And then respond to them. That'd be great too.
We love checking our email. Very important. We love to get questions in the first year office. So if you have questions, send them our way. in email. We're happy to answer, but we can also answer the phone if you want to chat on the phone. And if you have questions about courses, course registration, contact your college advisor, get to know them. They're going to be with you for 4 years. They're amazing people, and it's very important to develop that connection because they are going to help you so much. So get to know them. And I am going to make sure that Rebecca has a chance to finish this question. Are you answering the?
No, sorry. I just yay. I'm so excited to see you all.
Finally, last question, hours and days the office is open. First year experience office is usually open like 8:30 until 5 p.m. But if you call and we're maybe out of our office, or if you get voicemail, we will reply to all those voicemails. So feel free to leave a message with a phone number or where we can contact you, and we will get back to you within the next working day. And with that, thank you so much for attending our webinar. We really appreciate all of you for being here, and we will maybe see you next week for our week 6 webinar about navigating your financial account. Thanks, everyone.